Coming up on today's show, we're going to react to an article from Mary Kay Cabot where she ran through what she's hearing on some of the marquee free agents for the Browns, whether or not they're going to be returning or walking in free agency. So let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right into it. Let's start with quarterback Joe Flacco. This is a very unique situation. How often do teams let a quarterback that start a playoff game for them walk in free agency? That seems like good trivia right there. And I feel like it's probably happened to the Texans a lot. But this one's definitely a very delicate case. And here's what Mary Kay had to say on what's going on with Flacco and the Browns. Flacco, 39, plans to test the free agent waters when the negotiating period opens March 11th, and the league officially opens for business on March 13th, a league source tells Cleveland.com. The Browns and Flacco have expressed mutual interest in having him return to Cleveland, but Flacco's first choice would be to sign with a team that either views him as a starter or gives him a chance to compete for the job. Personally, I don't know what to make of Flacco's free agency stock, right? Is he a guy that teams are going to pursue heavily? Like Jacoby Brissett got a 1-year, $8 million contract from the Commanders last offseason. Is Flacco going to get something similar? Because if so, well, I'm sure the Browns would have loved to have brought Jacoby Brissett back last offseason, but they weren't going to spend $8 million on a backup quarterback. And if Joe Flacco gets $8 million, I don't think the Browns are going to spend $8 million on a backup quarterback for Flacco either, right? You look at his numbers, NFL Comeback Player of the Year award winner, 1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns. Like, there's going to be teams that are interested in Flacco. I just don't know how much interest there will be from a dollar perspective, right? Are they going to be interested in making a sizable investment in him? Nothing crazy, but 1 year, $7, $8, $9 million? Or are they going to view that as, hey, that was an awesome run you had with the Browns, but we're not going to be the ones that get stuck with the big bill afterwards? I think that was a flash in the pan. I don't think you're going to be able to repeat that the next year, given your age. But Flacco played some of his best NFL football with the Browns. Now, if I had to come up with a list of destinations for Joe, excluding the Browns, I think some of these teams could make some sense if certain dominoes fall, right? If Atlanta doesn't get Justin Fields and they can't move up in the draft, maybe they view Flacco as a good short-term gap quarterback. Maybe a return to Denver. They're going to move on from Russell Wilson. If they can't move up for a quarterback, maybe they view Flacco as a good short-term gap quarterback. What if the Vikings let Kirk Cousins walk and they too can't move up? I could see Flacco landing there. Patriots with Alex Van Pelt. That could be one to watch for. If the Buccaneers don't give Baker all the money he's looking for and he goes to one of these other teams, maybe Tampa Bay is interested in Joe Flacco. How about the Washington Commanders? If they draft a guy like Drake May or Jaden Daniels, some people think Drake May should sit for a year. Maybe Flacco could come in and start for a season until Drake May is ready to roll. So I could see some of these teams giving Flacco a decent investment. I could also see these teams going, listen, what you did last year in Cleveland was awesome, but we're not going to bet $8 million that you can continue that run with a new team in a new year in a new city, a little bit older. Here's more from Mary Kay. If Flacco doesn't find greener pastures, he'd love to remain in Cleveland, even though it means backing up Deshaun Watson. If he signs elsewhere, the Browns will turn their attention to other veteran backups, such as Brissett. For those who covet Minshew, he'll aim for a starting job. Cleveland native Mitchell Trubisky, whom the Browns loved in the 2017 draft, is also free. My prediction for Joe Flacco, I think he's going to walk. I'd be on board with bringing Flacco back if I know that the emotional side can be put to the side. Can this locker room accept having Joe Flacco be the backup if things get a little bit dicey with Watson? Or does everyone want to pull the plug on Watson super quickly because of what we saw out of Joe Flacco last year? Is it going to be a little bit of a distraction, or could everyone be professionals about it? And Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry in their press conferences were like, everyone can be professionals about it, but it's a little easier to say that in January versus at halftime in October. So that's something to factor into the decision a little bit. I ultimately just feel like the Browns aren't going to be in the market to be spending $8 million on a backup contract for Joe Flacco. If he finds that money elsewhere, I don't think the Browns are going to match it. So do you want Joe Flacco back? Let me get your opinion on this subject right now, really quick. Yes or no? Scroll on down. This is the pinned comment, so if YouTube, she likes to put ad breaks around this spot. If she does, scroll on down, type a Y or an N. Moving on to our second free agent, it is Za'Darius Smith, the defensive end, whom the Browns traded for last offseason from the Vikings. Here's what Mary Kay had to say on Za'Darius Smith. The Browns would love to re-sign defensive end Za'Darius Smith, but he'll likely hit the market next month and let free agency help determine his price. If Smith, the former Raven and Packer, signs elsewhere, the Browns will look at other defensive linemen in what promises to be a deep class. But the Browns will be contenders to keep Smith. So we got that from Mary Kay. And then we have this, maybe I'm reading into it too much, but I've got a reply from Za'Darius Smith to a Browns tweet about Cleveland hosting the Vikings for joint practices during preseason next year. Za'Darius Smith's last team, and Za'Darius hit them with the eyeballs. Now, he quickly deleted that tweet right there, which I don't know if that's even like more attention to the fact that he tweeted it and then deleted it, but it's social media, it's 2024. This is what we do in the offseason. So, to me, that kind of signals that Za'Darius Smith is excited to tee off against his old team, and he wants to stay in Cleveland to do so. Now, Za'Darius Smith last year didn't have that elusive double-digit sack season that so many, I hate to be demeaning, but let's just call it what it is, casual fans look for when evaluating edge rushers. It's like if you don't get 10 sacks, you're not good. That's just not true. I understand that's a little bit of an easy trap to fall to, but I think Andrew Berry said it best. When evaluating edge rushers, sacks are important, but I want to know how often are you pressuring the quarterback? How often are you disrupting the play? Because, yeah, sacks are great. I'd rather have a sack than a pass breakup, but who else enjoyed snap number 1 of the 2023 season when Za'Darius Smith pressured Joe Burrow and forced an incomplete pass? That's one of those 40 hurries and 60 pressures right there. Pro Football Focus ranked him 16th out of 112 qualifying players. I think the Browns will offer Za'Darius Smith something in the neighborhood of a 1-year, $11.5 million contract. Maybe it takes a 2-year contract to avoid him from walking to another team, but I feel like Za'Darius Smith really hit it off in Cleveland. He loved playing under Jim Schwartz. It's great playing opposite of Myles Garrett. I'm not too concerned about the age factor. The Browns let Jadeveon Clowney walk in free agency last year, and he just had the best year of his NFL career with the Ravens this past season. So I think Za'Darius Smith at 32, almost 33, he can still produce for at least 1, maybe 2 more seasons, and I'm willing to bet $11.5 million on it. So do you want Za'Darius Smith back? S for sign, W for walk. If the Browns re-sign Za'Darius Smith, they're likely not going to be looking for other defensive ends, right? They've got Okoronkwo. They're not going to be in the Chase Young market or any of these other defensive ends. So you got to pick one. And I'm willing to take another chance on Za'Darius Smith because I feel like he was very productive last year, and the pressures are going to turn into sacks next season. And $11 million could be a bargain if you get 10 sacks out of him. Moving on to our third free agent to talk about today, it is Sione Takitaki, former day 2 pick, 3rd round pick out of BYU for Cleveland, now entering what's going to be a 6th NFL offseason. And here's what Mary Kay had to say. He's a strong candidate to be the Browns' starting middle linebacker in 2024. But first, he and the Browns must agree on an extension, or they must re-sign him once he sees what else is out there. Ideally, the Browns will make an offer he can't refuse, and he won't hit the market. Takitaki loves playing for defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz and wants to remain with the team that drafted him. First reaction, middle linebacker. We're talking about Anthony Walker's job. Now, Takitaki was Anthony Walker's backup, and he was the starting Sam linebacker by the time Walker went down, which unfortunately was more often than we would like over the last couple of years. Takitaki was the guy that made the transition over to middle linebacker. So are the Browns planning to move on from Anthony Walker? Sign Takitaki? I mean, you can look at the depth chart right now. They want to move on from AWalk, slide Takitaki over to middle linebacker, and then you can draft a guy or sign a cheap free agent. Unfortunately, maybe Tony Fields, or if they feel really good about Diabate just competing for that role, I don't think that that should be their first plan of attack. But, man, moving on from Anthony Walker, that was my big takeaway from what MKC just wrote there about you want to move Takitaki to middle. That means you don't have faith in Anthony Walker staying healthy. And I don't think that's a bad opinion to have because Walker, like I said this a bazillion times on the channel, when he's on the field for Cleveland is awesome. But when he's not on the field, he is sorely missed. So do you want to be dependent on a guy that you can't depend on? That seems like a bad bet to make, right? Takitaki, you can look at what he did this past season, and then along with the previous 4 years, he's been a very consistent linebacker for Cleveland. He bounced back very nicely after his torn ACL in 2022, hit the ground running, was ready to roll as soon as week 1 rolled around in 2023. So I feel like the Browns, and rightfully so, do have a little bit of a crush on Takitaki, especially for what his value is, what it would cost to get him versus his production. Linebackers are not a spot that teams are paying a ton of money on. So if you can get good linebacker play for very cheap, that is music to a GM's ears. So here's my projected contract for Takitaki, who signed a 1-year, $2.3 million contract last year. How about a 2-year, $6 million contract, right? A little bit of pay bump, an extra year on it. If you really want to avoid him testing the free agent market and going out there and seeing what other offers he can get, give him a bit of a longer-term insurance, more than just 1 year, increase his pay a little bit, and you're getting a starting middle linebacker for $3 million. If you feel like Takitaki is ready for that role, that's a really good deal right there. All right, 2 more free agents to look at in just a moment. But first, we do have an awesome deal still on sale at Fanatics. It's this Brownie the Elf t-shirt right here. So if you want to up your Cleveland Browns wardrobe, go to chatsports.com/elf shirt. I put that link in the comments and description of today's video because I know none of you guys wrote that down. So if you want to get some more Browns gear, take this shirt right here, or you can browse around a little bit. But you got to use our link, though, to get that 30% off deal. 4th free agent to talk about today, defensive tackle Jordan Elliott. You knew it was coming. Contract year, Jordan Elliott, breakout season. And now he put himself in a really nice position to get some cheddar this offseason. But he's not the only free agent interior defensive lineman. It's Jordan Elliott, Maurice Hurst, and Shelby Harris. 3/4 of your defensive tackle rotation with Dalvin Tomlinson being the only guy under contract. And all 3 of these guys had strong seasons. Now, on paper, you might argue that Jordan Elliott was the best. PFF would say he was actually the worst, but I don't think PFF is the only way, and I definitely don't think it's the last way to determine whether a player is good or not. We probably read into PFF a little bit too much, and I can be guilty of that. But if I'm looking at these 3 guys here, here's my preference order on who I would like to re-sign the most. Number 1 is Maurice Hurst. I think he was the best of the bunch at stretches. The locker room loved him, and he's probably the cheapest of the bunch. So talk about absolute bang for your buck right there. Number 2 is Shelby Harris. Now, he's a bit older, right? He's going to be turning 33 soon. However, I do feel like Shelby Harris was very impactful for the Browns this past year. He did make some big plays for Cleveland. He got his paws up. He had some nice pass breakups. So I'm a big fan of Shelby Harris. And then finally, I've got Jordan Elliott at number 3. I saw 3 tough seasons, and hey, you're not going to be your best your rookie year most likely. But then I saw him have a breakout year and a contract season. I don't know if it's wise for Cleveland to pay Jordan Elliott for 1 good year after 3 disappointing seasons, right? I think you should let Jordan Elliott test the open market. If he goes out in the open market and he finds out he's not going to be getting a big contract from another team, then yeah, I'm open to re-signing Elliott, but I don't want to be the team that pays the Elliott the biggest offer. If someone else has a bigger offer for Elliott, I don't want to see Cleveland match it. If Elliott goes, listen, teams X, Y, and Z are offering me 1, 2, 3, the Browns go, listen, this was our offer from you. None of those teams are above that offer. So if you want to come back for the same amount of money that team Y has given you, yeah, let's do it. But if team Z's got more offer, then we're going to probably let you walk. Now, which of those 3 defensive tackles do you want to re-sign? Maurice Hurst does come off a torn pec, and unfortunately, injuries have been a big part of his NFL career. But man, when he's healthy, I also think there's like a human element to it. And I'm not in the locker room, so I'm not the best to say, but everyone I've ever talked to said Maurice Hurst is just a ball of energy in that Cleveland Browns locker room. And you never want to lose the funny guys. The funny guys keep the world moving. You need the funny guys in the office. Otherwise, it's just dry and boring. Fifth and final free agent is tight end Harrison Bryant. Harrison Bryant from Alabama he's gone. I mean, I don't think the Browns are going to be bringing him back. And I feel like this might be making way too big of a deal out of one moment. But I just kind of wonder, like, Harrison Bryant doesn't let that pass against the Steelers go through his hands. Maybe he's coming back. And I know that's just one play, and I know that's not how it works. But I also know that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, while they are very bright minds, they are humans. And these thoughts may be creeping into their minds when they're, at the Oval Office. And they're like, can't do it. Let's just go a different direction and kind of start over at tight end 2, tight end 3. That's not going to ultimately make or break the 2024 Cleveland Browns season. The Browns tight end room, though, if they move on from Harrison Bryant, Jordan Akins is a cut candidate. So if they don't bring back Harrison Bryant, my suspicion is Jordan Akins may have an easier path to returning. But if they do move on from Akins to save cap space and they let Harrison Bryant walk, they're going to have to pretty much rebuild this entire tight end room because Zaire Mitchell-Payton has been a practice squad guy for the Browns his entire career. So look for a tight end pick in day 3 of the NFL draft. They haven't drafted a tight end since Harrison Bryant, just off the top of my head. So it's been 4 years. They're kind of due to replenish the tight end crop a little bit. So keep an eye on the tight ends in this upcoming draft class. All right, let's pick a card here. What do we think? Ace of Spades?
Ace of Spades would be nuts. Fan of ZaDarius Smith, 9.
9.
9.
Yep.
So go with 9.
Okay.
9 of diamonds.
9 of diamonds. I like it. I'm going to go with the Queen of Clubs. Jack of Spades. Jack of Spades. That was close. All right. We will sign off, and we will see you guys later.